Welcome back to Guillotier Games. Today, I wanted to talk about a different game. So far we've covered quite a bit of Satisfactory, and there's going to be plenty more Satisfactory to come. But I wanted to also talk about another game that's related in kind of an odd way. Scrap Mechanic has been in early access for a number of years. Still has not made its official release. Still in early access. And the devs have been pretty quiet for quite some time. So one of two things is going to happen. This game will remain in early access a bit longer, or it will be releasing soon. There's really no way to know, but there is a rabid and devoted fan base to this game. And hopefully I can demonstrate why. This is going to be kind of an intro to Scrap Mechanic and what you can expect with this game. So there's three different modes. Creative, as with most of the building games I tend to enjoy, there's basically no cost to any components. You can build whatever you want. And challenge mode is the same. There's no cost. However, you are given a limited supply of different components to build from and then presented with various challenges. Challenge mode is actually a really good way to learn how various components work and what they do. I don't recommend creative for that. I recommend challenge for that if you're just looking to figure out how it works. You can also just jump straight into survival and learn that way, because there is a bit of a tutorial in the beginning that does help. Because the game has been out for several years in early access, and there is a very, very detailed Steam Workshop modding team of people scattered throughout the planet, there's also all sorts of custom kinds of games where you can have a survival mode, but maybe they've tweaked recipes or something like that, or changed how certain behaviors work. So let's just jump into a quick example. Now, I'm not going to go through the very beginning intro of the game. I'll just tell you that you crash your spaceship and it's on fire, and you have to put the spaceship out and gather some basic materials, learn how to build a very sad little car, and then make your way to this location or a similar location. There is some randomness to, I guess it's like a tiled map system that's a little bit random, but ultimately you're going to find yourself headed towards a gas station, which is basically what this is, an old rundown gas station. When you get here, the only thing you really have is this simple craft bot and very few components that you can build. What do the components do? Well, you essentially build things out of little cubes for their base structure, and then you might have an engine, and maybe you have some wheels, and you have bearings, and then some buttons to control a thing, and then a driver's seat that you sit in when you want to operate it. So at first it seems like a very simple, straightforward, game where you're just going to slap some things together. However, I will tell you that there's a lot more here than is initially obvious. This contraption I built recently. It's for mining metal and stone, and we'll get back to this, but I just wanted to show that there's a lot more going on here in terms of what you can actually do automation-wise and how much control you actually have. Basically, you always have this little lift and then a hammer for both defending yourself and doing various things while crafting as well. The lift is where we build our stuff, okay? And if I take, it doesn't really matter which block material, there's different ones, various woods and metals, and you just build yourself a little base like that. So I've got a little base, and now if I wanted to make this pilotable, I would have to add a place to sit, and then maybe we want to put some bearings on this thing like so, and then you can put wheels on it. So like, for example, these scrap wheels, I'll just pick that up off the ground. And these wheels are like your wheels that you start the game with, or have to build them with, and they're terrible. As you can see, they're all beat up and held together with spit and duct tape. And then eventually you can start building better wheels. So everything kind of just snaps together. And when it's green like that, it just shows you that that's, you know, going to actually attach to that bearing. You could also attach it here, but it's not going to spin. So there is an understanding of a physics engine here, and it's detailed enough to be fun. It's good enough with the components you get to do a lot of crazy stuff. Like you can build a forklift or a backhoe, but you can't actually dig with a backhoe. But you can use it to pick things up that you knock down, like trees, and that sort of thing. You can build all sorts of different contraptions to help you speed through the survival process. And if I use a component and then take it back, you can see on the lower right, it just goes right back in my inventory. So there's no permanent cost when using components. I can reconfigure this ridiculous vehicle anytime I want, and I get all the components back. I can put a construction I've already made back on my lift, and it also lets me raise and lower it so it's easier to work on from, you know, underneath in various angles. I can also place the lift next to the vehicle, stand on it, and then use it as an elevator so I can get to higher, harder to reach places. You can also do this while gathering. So there's a whole lot going on here in this game, a lot more than I expected. I actually expected to enter this early access game and find out that it's really just made for kids because of its cartoony look, or maybe it is very limited in its mechanics, if you will. But that's just not the case. I was completely wrong about that. This crazy contraption, for example, and I'm just using this as an example because it's convenient and I have it here. It's wood-based. There's wheels on it, and then you have your little driver's seat. If I jump up on top of that, you can see I actually sit right on top. Little top-down view, you can see if I use my A and D keys, I can turn the wheels. So you actually have the ability. This is how you connect things. So these are the bearings that get highlighted, and you can just connect your controls to the bearings to tell it I want to turn these bearings. And that's basically all that's happening. Back here are two motors. This motor you can see is linked up to the wheel bearings themselves. That's how you tell it that I want this gas motor to actually propel this in this direction. And you can see it's also connected to the front wheels. I had to make this four-wheel drive essentially because a lot of the weight's up front. And there's a second engine here that I'm using that goes all the way up to these two stone grinders. And then you can also see back here I've got a big old gas tank, and if I turn the linkages on, you can see that both of those motors are told to basically get your gas from this big gas tank, which I have some gas in. When you're in survival mode, all these things have to be farmed and gathered, and you build each component based on, I know, how you've gathered things. So if I, for example, I'm going to run over here really quick, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like if I were to gather something. So for flowers, there's just pick up. You can see in the lower right, I have a pigment flower. That's for using the paint gun, or paint tool, so that I can paint things. Which is not just for aesthetics, by the way. There's actually sensors that can pick up colors and trigger things on and off based on the colors that it sees, or the state of something that it sees. So if I wanted to gather this tree, for example, just hit it with my hammer. It then falls down. We get some logs. We break those up in smaller pieces, which you can see like this piece right here. And then I can refine it with this little refining tool. And then on the lower right, you can see I've got some scrap wood blocks. That right there is actually mineable stone. You get stone and metal from that. You do not get it from these kinds of rocks. It's just these kind of obvious nodes. The challenge in the game, though, is that you'll spend an awful lot of time breaking everything down by hand. If I were to just continuously knock down trees with my hammer and hand refine these components, it takes a long time to do. In the beginning, that's all you have. But the whole aspect of making sure you're making good use of your time is key. And that's why we build various contraptions in this game to help speed that process along. Also because it's actually a lot of fun to build those things. This funny looking thing, don't mind these weird stone things sticking out. This is basically just a fence to slow down the robots that will come. There's a bunch of robots here already that have gone haywire, and they come to attack various things. This is a garden where you plant, carrots or whatnot, because you have to actually constantly be eating and drinking in survival mode. And so you have to protect your crops from those invasions, or raids as they're called. There is actually a swimming system, and you can go underwater. You can see my little breath meter at the top, and you can collect some materials down here, like these glue clams, which, as you might guess, you need it to make glue. So let's go ahead and head back up. There's also oil. That's how you get your gas. You can see some of the gas geysers or oil geysers out there. Use the oil for building engines and what they call pistons, which are actually just linear actuators. But you need oil for that, and then oil can also be converted to gas as well. And that's how you power the gas engine side of things. There's also an electrical side where there's batteries, so you can have electrical and gas. There's a whole bunch of bots that just ran through. Oh my gosh, they're attacking that cow. Wow. These are hay bots. You have to be hit about 5 times with your hammer, and kind of just running backwards makes it a little easier to fight them, because they do hit pretty hard, even if, depending on the mode. And you can see when you knock them down, we have these refinable parts, we have these component kits that drop sometimes, and then they also drop electronics from the hay bots, or certain kinds of bots. So as I refine this, I get scrap metal. Initially, this is how you're going to go after scrap metal, because you can't use your hammer to hit those big stone nodes that I was pointing out. You actually need those big grinder bit things that I showed you on the front of my vehicle over there. So when you start out, pretty much you have to just go seek out these bots and take them out in order to get some scrap metal, and that scrap metal can be upgraded. So when you first arrive here, there is a console. First of all, there's a battery you've got to go find and put in there to power everything, but then you get to this console, and here's the bigger stations. This craft bot, much more capable than the little one on the wall you start with. There's a refiner bot and a resource collector, which I'll talk about those in a little bit. Cook bot and a dress bot I haven't even made yet. Pretty obvious what they might do, though. So you can actually see right here, there's a gathering and a refiner right here. The gatherer kind of just collects from an area, so as you're grinding up those materials, they come out in like a log shape, similar to the wood one that I showed you earlier when I knocked down the tree. And it just picks those up, and then the refiner actually just pulls directly from there and spits it all out into this container, this box, in finished cubes, either metal or stone in the case of what I've been working on. So I want to show you what the more capable refinery bot is. And this building was here at the gas station when I showed up. I believe there's one at every station. I put this inside just to try and basically keep it away from all the bots that are constantly outside, so that I can craft in peace. This is a craft bot. There's a whole lot going on here of various components you can make, from bearings and switches and sensors and suspension and engines and different seats to control things. There's even jet engine kind of things, thrusters they call them, logic gates, timers, and various containers, and this vacuum pump, which is way more useful than you would ever expect for both harvesting, because it'll go in both directions. It'll harvest plants. It does all kinds of crazy stuff. You can use it to shoot water onto your crops. Fully automated farming if you want. Various sizes of wheels. I am playing in this one. I think I started a custom game here, or joined one of my existing custom games, which includes some of the additional wheels and other parts from creative mode in here that you can build. So there's of the consumables. There's your gas, some batteries, and various things you can craft as well. And again, some of those recipes are from the mod that I use. Now, you might ask, my gosh, why are you showing mods? Well, this game has been out in early access for many years and has been... Uh-oh, we're thirsty. Notice that pop up there, and you can see in the lower left, the blue meter is your thirst. So I'm just going to go ahead and drink a little bit there. Whoops, I didn't finish drinking. There we are. So both food and drink give you a little bit of both, tilted in one direction or the other. Food tends to give, satiate hunger better. Might give you a little bit of fluids though. Let me jump over here too. I want to show you this kind of bot. These little guys, they're awfully cute, but they do attack. About 3 hits with your hammer to knock down, and they drop electronics typically, or circuit boards as they're called. So I guess the biggest point I'm trying to get through on this video, this short little video, is just give this game a shot. You may be surprised at how much is here. And attempt the base game first in survival before you get into mods. But since it's been out for quite some time and hasn't had an update in quite a while, although there's acknowledged rumors of, an update at some point, Chapter 2, right now, the game has been in this state for some time, so the modding community has been having a whole lot of fun with this little physics sandbox and doing all sorts of fun mods, and they can take care of some of the balance concerns that may exist. Remember, we're still early access, and make the game even more enjoyable in different ways. This is co-opable as well, so you can invite people into your game and you can build together, gather together, farm together, etc. And make two-man vehicles. I saw a video recently of a vehicle where one person drives and another person is using a big collector arm to take down trees. So you can do all kinds of collaboration together. Not just, I'd say combat is really not a big focus of this game, but it's there, and they are meant to harass you while you're trying to gather and while you're trying to do things. I think that's definitely part of the experience, but not the focus. I think the focus is really on building crazy contraptions to help speed up or help make your survivability a little more enjoyable. Just using your hammer for doing everything you'll find, and manually hauling water in buckets, which you have to do while farming, takes a lot of time. You end up just burning day after day after day, just making a few carrots and a couple logs and, taking out a few robots in order to survive. And the moment that I built this contraption and went out and used it was a very eye-opening experience, because suddenly I could take out an entire node of stone that I couldn't even, tear down with my hammer prior, and completely just wipe out that entire node and craft it all into stone and metal for use very quickly. Also, I recommend kind of just using one vehicle initially, and then just take these spinning heads off and put giant saw blades on here, and then go use it to take out trees as well. And that's what I do with this vehicle. I just reconfigure it, because nothing is lost. Each time you remove a component, you get it back. So you can easily just kind of rework the front end on that over and over again as you need to early on, because the components are expensive in materials. Once you get semi-automated systems like this, material starts to get a lot easier, and that's what helps you move on. There's also an exploration aspect to this game. I won't get too much into that in this video, but when you're initially farming especially, you need to find those various robots, and what their ultimate goal is they run around collecting hay, the upright ones, they're why they're called hay bots, and they pile it up in these old structures like this one here. And those structures, when you go inside of them, there are loot chests and various things inside. You can see a haybot right there. Actually, he just saw me. Both of them did. I think they have some kind of an aggro range where they warn each other. But those are the places you want to go to loot. And then there's even more beyond that. There's other kinds of locations. There's even a merchant, at least one in every world. But there's also more dangerous robots. So it comes at a risk. But the exploration aspect is also there. These old roads that are a little beat up, but they're much easier for your car to drive on, especially before you get suspension. And you can drive around and look at those points of interest and search them and loot them and get all different things from them as well. Seeds for farming and that kind of thing. So, just meant to be an intro. Wanted everyone to on the channel to know about this game. If you haven't seen it, it's actually very, very reasonably priced on Steam as well. So if nothing else, I will say that the early access is 100% worth playing. It feels like I won't say a finished game, but it feels like a good game already. I make the point that it's very similar to Satisfactory in that aspect. Satisfactory felt really, really good in early access. This game does too, and this one's surprising just because of the cartoony look. You wouldn't expect the in-depth mechanics that it actually has. And if you're looking for something like the game Gearbox, if you're familiar with that, but you want something that's maybe a little easier to manipulate the components and not as complex, this may well be a game for you, if you're familiar with that one as well. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.